Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Emhauser here with you on this gorgeous Wednesday, July 16th in the Pacific Northwest. It's a hot one out there. So hopefully wherever you are, you've got something cold and refreshing next to you. We've got a lot to cover here during the show, and I could not wait to get started. So here we go. We're going to start with some news going on around the team and around the NFL. And then we will get into the main event, which today will be a completion of the two-parter that I started yesterday, going through the entire 53-man projected roster. Yesterday, we did the offense, and today we are going to do defense and special teams and look at the whole 53-man roster. If you missed yesterday's show, highly recommend you go back and check it out for a lot of, I think, pretty key pivotal items that are and players that are going to help make or break things for how the roster math will work. I also am going to show you my projections in this show for offense as well. So if you want to skip all that, you'll miss a little bit of context, but you'll at least know who my picks are at this particular moment for the 53. So we'll go over that today. Looking forward to getting into that. It was a lot of fun yesterday for me, and it's always really informative because it's one thing as a fan, you're like, let's keep all the best players. That's not really how it works when you're building out a 53-man roster. Special teams plays a role. You've got to keep the right amount of backups for certain positions. You've got to have players that are going to actually, supply the specific sub packages you're going to play. So yesterday we talked a lot about how the Seahawks are not going to be a heavy 11 personnel team anymore. 11 is the first one's running back. The second one is tight end. And that means that they'd have 3 receivers. So 11 personnel is 3 receivers. They're going to be a lot of 12 personnel. Sometimes they might be 22, which is, two backs and 2 tight ends. You're going to have fullbacks this year. So a lot of things change from the roster math of past years, depending on how you're running your offense and how you're running your defense. So it's always helpful for me to do this before we get into camp because it helps focus me on where there are battles that nobody else really understands between players that might not even play the same position, but are battling for those final few spots that will need to stand out on special teams almost more than they'll need to stand out in their specific position group in order to make the roster. So looking forward to doing that with you today. Before I get to that, I'm going to share some news. So we'll go through that and then I'll get to those things. If you haven't already, click subscribe, click the little bell to get notified when we go live here. Please do. It is something that helps. We're growing a really fun, friendly community. Would love to have you part of it. So please do that. Please head over to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Sign up there, get ad-free audio to this show every single day. Also get access to our Discord channel. Lots of really fun people, fun conversation there. And you get verified on HBTix, hbtix.com, where is the best place for you as a Seahawks fan to sell tickets or buy tickets from Seahawks fans and from Seahawks fans. So that's a great place to go to make sure we protect our home field advantage. And we're not selling our tickets to the home opener against the 49ers to 49er fans. We don't want that. So use hbtix.com. News. So yesterday, I think I might have been the first person to tweet out that Elijah Arroyo and Nick Emmanwori, the Seahawks' 2 second-round picks, both posted stories on their Instagram accounts that showed them in places other than Seattle. Elijah Arroyo was in Florida, University of Miami's practice facility. I think Nick Emmanwori might have been in the UCF practice facility. I'm not sure. In any event, the other rookies were on their way to Seattle. Those 2 were not. So then the Seahawks posted a video last night of a lot of the rookies showing up. Those 2 players were not 2 of them. So what we were concerned about is looking like it has come to pass, which is that every second-round pick, except for the first 2, have not signed. And again, really quickly, if you haven't been paying attention, you want to understand what's going on. For years, second-round picks have never been fully guaranteed in their contracts. But then Houston went and decided to change things and gave a fully guaranteed deal to the second pick of the second round this year. Then the Browns, who had the first pick in the second round, followed suit. They gave 100% guarantee to their pick in the second round. And that leaves the third pick in the second round, which was Nick Emmanwori. Everybody in the NFL is waiting to see who blinks first, the Seahawks and John Schneider, or Nick Emmanwori and his representation. I would not bet on John Schneider being the one that bends. He does not do that. I don't think he's going to feel pressure to do that. He is going to wait this thing out. And it's unfortunate that this has all happened. I think Houston deserves a lot of criticism for this. And I mean, in the end of the day, the third pick last year, I believe, had like 88% of his contract guaranteed. So, I mean, we're probably talking about Nick Emmanwori's group asking for 100% guarantee. The Seahawks are probably at like 90 maybe, because it does seem to creep up a little bit every year. They'll settle somewhere in between. It's a really, I mean, it matters for Nick Emmanwori, so I don't want to minimize it for him. The money matters, and having guaranteed money, and these teams will kick you to the curb as soon as they think you're not worth your deal. So you want to get as much money as you can when you're a young person entering the league, but it's a pretty minimal part of the overall contract, and really almost the only thing that's left to negotiate, because all the players are slotted in at specific values. So that's what's going on. They're haggling because they have not signed a deal. They are not able to play the way that they played during mini camps. And Brady Henderson, who's, the best on the beat for my money, explained it well on his Twitter account yesterday. He says that both Nick Emmanwori and Elijah Arroyo practiced during the spring. They signed what's known as a participation agreement with the team that assures that the unsigned rookie will get his slotted contract even if he's hurt while practicing. But those participation agreements don't apply to training camp. And because the rookies are not under contract, they're also not subject to fines or for not showing up the way a veteran would. So that means that they can hold out this whole time and they will not get fined for doing so. They also will potentially lose opportunity to get better, to make the team. I mean, I assume both these guys are going to make the team. I had them both making the team. I don't think that's even really a question. But for them to play prominent roles, which they're both expected to do, missing time is a big deal. So it's just a shame. It's a shame that this is going on. It is still news. We will have to pay attention to it. Hopefully, I mean, training camp doesn't start till next week. Hopefully, cooler minds prevail and they come to some compromise agreement, and both those guys are in camp by the time training camp starts. Deadlines tend to force a little bit of action, so we'll see if next week is when this gets resolved. If not, it could last a little while, and it would be a shame for both of those guys because they absolutely need the time on the practice field. So that is news bit number one. The other bit of news before we get into the heart of the show today is that the Seahawks listed 6 players on the NFI list, the non-football injury list. The players that they listed: Riley Mills, who we already knew had a knee injury during the college football playoffs. Not clear when he's going to be available, even if he'll be available this year. The expectation is he will be, but we don't really know when. So that's not a surprise. But then there were some names that were an interesting list there. Zy Alexander, the cornerback, as well as Isis Waxter, the cornerback. So both of those guys are on the list. Zy Alexander practiced during spring, so something must have happened between spring practice and now, which is not great. We'll find out how serious soon. Might not be that serious, but we'll find out. Isis Waxter did not practice during spring. He practiced during the rookie mini camp. He's a guy that I'm interested in and believe has, I think, real shot to make this team if he can get on the field. The other guys are wide receiver Tyrone Broden, 6'5", lengthy, speedy receiver out of Arkansas. Montori Foster, the other receiver who made it as an undrafted free agent from rookie minicamp. And then linebacker Derek Jackson. who also was a guy who made it from rookie minicamp onto the roster as undrafted. So those are the guys that were on the list. That's a bit of news. There's also a bit of news for the guy that was not on the list. Torrey Horton Jr. did not practice during spring practice. The fact that he's not on the NFI list does not preclude them from putting him on the PUP list. That could still happen. He still might not be ready to practice. But there's a little glimmer of hope that Torrey Horton is going to be ready to start training camp. That would be good news. We will see what happens there, but that's something that I will certainly keep an eye on and is a big part of what's going to be going on. All right, so those are the kind of high headline news items. In something that I'll share that's a little bit of not a headline, but information and a little bit of fun stuff. Player prop bets have come out, and you may have heard this on Brock and Salk today. I was listening as I was driving around, and for Sam Darnold, they have an over-under of 3,450 yards, which is a decent number, and an over and under of 20 and a half touchdowns against, I think somewhere, I didn't find this, but they, at least in Brock and Salk, they were talking about 13 and a half interceptions was the prop bet there. Now, you might see that and be like, oh, that's not good. 20 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Yuck. That's what Brock Purdy had last year. 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. And if you want to know what Matt Stafford had 20 touchdowns and 9 interceptions last year. So if you're curious, yeah, I actually had 20 and 8. If you want to know what Geno Smith had, it was 21 and 15. And Kyler Murray was 21 and 11. So all of them were around 20 and, double-digit interceptions. I'll tell you right now, I had a different reaction than Brock and Salk. They're like, that's not good. You can't win with 20 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. I actually disagree. I think if Sam Darnold throws 20 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, and the Seahawks are a top 10 rushing team and a top 10 or top 5 defense, they're going to win 10 or 11 games for sure. So I don't actually hate these over-unders. I'm a little concerned that they're a little high on the yardage total, at least. But for what it's worth, Sam Darnold's only thrown more than 20 touchdowns once in his career, and that was last year. His other career high was 19 back in 2019 for the Jets, and he threw 13 picks that year. So I don't know. I personally am not I don't hate those numbers. If those came in, I'd probably sign up for them right now. Interestingly, if you look around the division, so Sam Darnold was expected to throw for 3,450 yards, or at least that's the over-under. Kyler Murray is at 3,400. So they expect less passing yards from Kyler Murray. They expect Brock Purdy at 3,800, which is significantly more. And they expect 3,750 from Matt Stafford. So Purdy and Stafford are pretty much identical. Murray was actually last of the four in terms of expected passing yards. As far as passing touchdowns, interestingly, Darnold's at 20 and a half. Kyler Murray's at 20 and a half. So they're identical. They're pretty much getting the same prop bets. And then Purdy and Stafford both are at 23 and a half. So it's 3 more. It's not 10 more or 8 more, 3 more. So it is like the prop bets for this are relatively close for all 4 quarterbacks in the division. They do have Purdy and Stafford ahead, which is what I would expect, but not by a huge number. So just thought that was interesting. Curious where you would be on that. Last little bit of news before I get into the 53-man roster. ESPN has continued their series with Jeremy Fowler of who execs, GMs, scouts, coaches, and stuff vote for who are the top players at every position. And they came out with wide receiver as well as off-ball linebackers since we've last talked. And off-ball linebackers, if you're wondering where Ernest Jones was in the top 10 list, he didn't make the top 10. He didn't make the honorable mention, which, by the way, the honorable mention had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players. So out of 21 off-ball linebackers, Ernest Jones didn't make that list. He did make the also receiving votes list, but it's kind of shocking. I know Griffin Sturgeon will be upset that Jordan Brooks also did not make the top 21 players and was just on the also receiving votes. But that's one I think is going to be different by the time the year's over. I think Ernest Jones is going to move well up that list. The receivers that came out today, there is no Seahawk on the top 10, which is probably not a surprise. In fact, as I look through this, I don't believe there is a single NFC West player in the top 10. There is not. And Puka Nacua, I would have expected to be on that top 10. He was not. He was in the honorable mentions. DK Metcalf, if you're curious, was in the honorable mentions, not in the top 10. And then Devontae Adams also was in the honorable mention. So the Rams have 2 honorable mention receivers. And Jackson Smith-Njigba did receive votes, but was not honorable mentions. Is there any 49er receiver that received, I don't see any 49er receiver. I don't see any Cardinals receiver even receiving votes. So that's pretty interesting that the 49ers have 0 players receiving any votes as well as the Cardinals. So that is a quick run through some of the bits of news and notes. See, we've already got a super chat here, so let me get that up here. Jacoby says, very good radio appearance on Brock and Salk, Brian. Well, that is nice of you, Jacoby. Appreciate the super chat and the nice words. It's fun, man. It's fun going over there, hanging out with Salk. And, I think those guys do a great job. It's one of the shows that I listen to regularly, and there's not a lot at this point that I listen to regularly, but I think they do a really, really good job. And I think that whole crew, I think they've got a lot of great folks over there who do it the right way. So, yeah, it was fun. And it's been fun having some of them on the show here. So we'll see what we can continue to do partnership wise. I got some good news just came in. We're going to have a fun guest on Friday. I'm sending him a message right now. Sorry guys, 1 second. I got to be timely with this person. Okay. So we're gonna have a fun guest we have a fun guest tomorrow too. EJ Snyder from A Bootleg Football be on 7:30 in the morning, and then I've got a Seahawk who's coming on Friday. Gonna be fun. I'm really looking forward to talking to him. I've been trading notes for a little while, and this is a guy on the current roster and a guy that I'm certainly a big proponent of. So keep an eye out for the Friday show. That'll be great. Okay, so. I see that Big Mike says, crap, I thought you were going to break it that Ian Arroyo signed. I'm not. I'm probably not going to be the news breaker for you guys most of the time. That is not how you get the best information from people. I actually like to keep things secret, and I find out a lot more information that way. So let's do a quick review of what we talked about yesterday. And I saw from at least someone that they would said, can you make your face smaller and the screen larger? Which I fully understand. Why would you want to see a big version of my face when you could see this beautifully color-coded spreadsheet I've got for you? So what we've got here is the roster that I shared yesterday. And what I did there was went over color codes. So again, green means I think they're a lock for the roster. I don't think it's a question. Blue means I have high confidence that they're going to make the roster, pretty close to a lock. Yellow means that they're on the bubble. And then down here, you've got the number that I'm projecting for each position that they're going to keep. So I'm projecting 3 quarterbacks right now, 4 running backs, which includes fullbacks, 5 wide receivers, 4 tight ends, and 10 offensive linemen. Now, also, I do it in order. So top to bottom. So most likely to least likely is you can kind of read it from top to bottom that way. So I have Sam Darnold as the number 1 quarterback that I expect to be kept. And one of the things that I did in real time yesterday was kind of look at what we're going to do at the running back position, because last year the Seahawks kept 11 offensive linemen, and I thought there was a good chance to do it again. But as I'm looking at the tight end room and the running back room, they're going to have to keep at least 4 running backs since they're going to have a fullback. There is no way that they will keep just Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet and 1 fullback. They have to have 3 running backs and a fullback. So that's 4 at a minimum. I don't think it's crazy that they would go up to 5. I also think they're going to have fewer wide receivers than they kept in past years. They had 6 last year. I'm having them keep 5 this year because they're going to be more of a 12 personnel, maybe 22 personnel type of team. Use the tight end more, fewer times where you're going to have 3 receivers on the field. I think even the 3rd receiver is not going to get a ton of targets. I think the 4th receiver and 5th receiver are going to get very minimal targets. That was a very tough room to project and continues to be. I have Torrey Horton as the 5th guy, which means Steven Sims, the designated return man that they signed, would not make it. It means Cody White would not make it. It means Ricky White would not make it. Derek Young would not make it. Those are all tough cuts, especially like Sims and White. And I talked about this yesterday. I think Cody White is a real sleeper going into camp as someone who could realistically push MVS off the roster. I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think it's crazy to think it might. So, and Jake Bobo's got competition. I know we all love Jake Bobo. Great guy, fun player, loved on the team. Great special teams player, which really helps him. But there's a lot of competition here. There really is at the back end of the receiver room. And then the big thing that I talked about yesterday was this quarterback room. I think Jalen Milroe is more of a lock to make this team than Drew Lock is. And right now I have them keeping 3 quarterbacks. But again, if you didn't hear yesterday's show, the real issue there is if Drew Lock is the real backup, which is the way things have been going so far in spring, where Drew Lock's getting 2nd team reps, if they enter the season believing that Drew Lock needs to be their backup, then if they want Jalen Milroe to actually be available on game day for, specialty packages, short yardage, red zone, that kind of thing, they'd need to have 3 quarterbacks active on game day. That is not great for depth on other parts of your roster. You cannot use an emergency quarterback as a wildcat quarterback or sub package kind of player. So that's the situation, that if there's a chance, if Jalen Milroe makes a really strong push, I'm not saying it's the likeliest outcome, there's a chance that they could look at Jalen Milroe as their backup and say, we want him active every week. And then Drew Lock becomes a casualty. So it is possible. I still have him as a high confidence keep. I do have them keeping 3 quarterbacks, but there is an outside chance that Jalen Milroe plays well enough during training camp that they make a different decision there. So that's a really big one to watch. So I'm not going to go through all of these others. The reason I have Noah Fant, someone asked before why he's a different color, is because I'm projecting going into this that Noah Fant will not be on the 53-man roster. I think he's going to be moved before they finalize or as they finalize that part of the roster. So that's why he's a different color. Offensive line. The reason that this one's particularly interesting, As I said, last year they kept 11. I have them keeping 10. And we went through this yesterday. You know, you've got Charles Cross and Abe Lucas as starters. You've got Gray Zabel as another left guard. Either Olu Oluwatimi or Jalen Sundell is your starting center, and either Christian Haynes or Anthony Bradford are likely your starting right guards. I have them keeping Josh Jones, who can be a swing tackle. I have them keeping Bryce Cabledew, who is a backup guard. And then I have them keeping Mike Jarrell, who can be the other backup tackle. I really don't like the idea of Satawa Lamea not making the team, but I think there's need for tackle depth, and Satawa Lamea he played tackle in college, but he's been exclusively an interior player in the pros. So if they go with 10, I think he might be on the outside looking in. Maybe Bryce Cabledew will be on the outside looking in, but I'm just very high on him and his fit with this particular scheme. So that's why, and that's where we get. Now, I went through that all really quickly. If you want to hear all the details and the explanation why more, check out the episode from yesterday, part 1 of this series. If you add up the total of my projected keep, you get 26. So I have them keeping 26 players on offense, which means there's only 24 spots left for defense, since you also keep 3 specialists. Now, before you say, well, that's crazy, why would they do that? Well, they did that last year. They kept 26 on offense. They kept 24 on defense last year. The exact mix of where they had those players is a little different for what I've got versus what they did last year, but they did keep more offensive players last year. I saw someone in comments say, I think they're going to do like 28 to 22. Like, no, teams don't have extreme splits like that. Maybe on the outside, like very rarely you'll have 27 to 23, but that's very unlikely to be something that a team sustains. They usually, the most they'll do is 26, 24. And a lot of teams prefer 25 offense, 25 defense, and 3 specialists to get to their 53. All right, so let's get into it looking at defense today. All right. So what I've got here is the defensive line. This is looking at the defensive tackles in particular. In fact, let me retitle this interior defensive line. Okay. So I have them keeping 6. And let me double check. I will look at this really quickly, but hold on. Let me pull it open. So last year they kept, I want to say 6. Let me double check that. Yes, last year they kept 6 defensive linemen. So this is the same number that they kept last year. I've got the names of those guys being Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed are the locks. That shouldn't be a shock. Then it gets interesting, to be very honest. I think that this is a position where they could end up keeping less than 6, fewer than 6. And I think the 6 they keep, it could be any mix of these guys. It could also be guys that aren't already on the roster. It could be a trade, could be a late pickup off of somebody else's cuts. Any of those things are possible. So right now I have Jonathan Hankins as a high confidence keep. And I don't think it's out of the question that they bring in, that either someone beats him out or they bring in someone else that they feel better about. And then it gets really mushy. Mike Morris. Right now, he is, I think, makes the roster as a backup defensive end. He's got a lot to prove. He has not had the impact yet that I think he wants or the team wants. So he's on the bubble. Brandon Peely is a guy that I asked about in spring. I think he's a really athletic nose tackle, big guy, strong guy. He put on, according to, who did I ask? Leonard Williams. Peely put on the most muscle of any player on the team during their OTA season. So, I mean, he's been putting in the work. I think he's got a chance to move up the list and be their nose tackle. I think he's got a shot. Quinton Bohanna has been with Aden Dirty in Dallas a couple years back. Then he went to Tennessee. The Seahawks signed him off, I think, the practice squad from Tennessee. Last year, he was with the team on and off. And so Aden Dirty knows him well. Peely and Bohanna are essentially battling for the backup nose tackle spot. And I think it's anybody's guess who's going to get it. I'm a little bit more in the Brandon Peely camp, partially because he's been out there on the field, partially because I think as an athlete, he might offer a little bit more upside, but don't know. I'm going to have to see when pads come up. Now, Bubba Thomas is an undrafted free agent. I've got him on the roster, and unfortunately, I forgot to take him off the bottom of the list. So I have him as a bubble guy as well. And he's a guy that has shown up a little bit during rookie minicamp and then OTAs and minicamp. I think it's very unlikely that he makes the final roster, but he's shown me enough that I at least think he should be mentioned. Now, I should have on this list, I think that's what I meant to have, Anthony Campbell. Anthony Campbell is the other name that should be on there that I forgot to list. And Anthony Campbell's a tall 6'7" defensive tackle project. I don't think either of those guys, J.R. Singleton has had some really nice reps. It's very hard for me to believe these guys are going to move up the list, but we'll see. Now, you'll also notice I've got Riley Mills. Let me make this so you guys can see this a little bit better. I think unfortunately, I can't move the chat that I've got showing. So let me pull chat off so you guys can see. I've got Riley Mills starting the season on PUP. So that is why if Riley Mills was healthy, then I think Mike Morris is in real trouble. If Riley Mills is not able to start the season on the roster, then I think Mike Morris has a much better chance of making it. So as it stands, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed, Jonathan Hankins, Mike Morris, and Brandon Peely. Those are the 6 that I have making it. That gives them a starting nose tackle and a backup nose tackle, and it gives them a backup at the defensive end position. Plus, Byron Murphy can play nose tackle. Jaron Reed can play nose tackle. They can all play. All those first 3 guys can play all the positions. So I don't love the depth here, to be honest, but we'll find out. We will find out as pads come on who we've got there. So that's the 6 on the interior defensive line. By the way, I don't think it's crazy that this is the spot where they could steal a roster spot, get down to 5 interior defensive linemen, and use that extra spot somewhere else. We'll see. All right. Inside linebacker. Next group. I have them keeping as a lock Ernest Jones and Tyrese Knight. That should be no surprise. I expect those 2 to be the starter. I don't think there's much question about that. I have them only keeping 4 off-ball linebackers. Last year, they kept 4. And after Tyrese Knight, I've got Drake Thomas and Josh Ross as the next 2. That would put Patrick O'Connell, Jamie Sheriff, and Derek Jackson off the roster. I think those guys, especially O'Connell and Sheriff, would be practice squad guys. Derek Jackson did show some interesting moments, and he's one to watch, but I think his probably realistic upside is practice squad. But the backup at inside linebacker, I think, is pretty wide open. The reason I have Drake Thomas and Josh Ross is because I think Drake Thomas has the highest upside of the linebackers after the starters. I think he's got starting upside, and we'll see if Mike McDonald feels the same way, depending on how they utilize him. He came in very late in camp last year. He had been injured, but when he came on, I was like, who is that? He is built differently than a lot of these other guys. I think there's a chance he could be someone who is, I don't know about a star, but he could be a guy that really starts to come on this training camp. I think he's one to watch, at least from my perspective. But the reason these two guys, both these guys, Josh Ross and Drake Thomas, are special teams like standouts. So I think they get the nod there. Patrick O'Connell's pretty good on special teams as well. Josh Ross came from Baltimore last year. Mike McDonald knows him. He's been a special team standout. I just think he's got a really good shot. So that is the 4: Ernest Jones, Tyrese Knight, Drake Thomas, Josh Ross for inside linebacker. Let's keep going. So next we get to outside linebacker edge as a position. I have them keeping 5 edge players this year. They kept 5 edge players last year. So I'm going chalk so far in terms of numbers on the defensive side. And I've got Derek Hall top on my list. I think Derek Hall's got another year on his contract after this year. He had a breakout year last year, and I think has maybe the highest upside of the guys, but that's debatable. So I've got Derek Hall as a lock. DeMarcus Lawrence, who they just signed to a big free agent deal next, I've got him as a lock. I think he's a key part of their base defense, of their run defense. Big part of that room. Boye Mafe next as a lock. And then I've got Uchenna Nwosu as a lock. Now, this is one to talk about because Uchenna Nwosu has not practiced yet. I don't know if he's going to start. I would bet he's going to start camp on PUP. That's my bet. I don't know that, but that's what I'm expecting. I'm also expecting that he's going to come off PUP during camp and be available to start the season. That's why I have him here. If he's not, if he starts the season on PUP, then that's going to bump up somebody else, or it gives them a chance to shift and take another player from another position to, fill out the roster. But for now, I've got Derek Hall, DeMarcus Lawrence, Boye Mafe, and Uchenna Nwosu as locks. And then I told you I'm having them keep 5 here. And this may surprise some people, maybe not surprise anybody. But my 5th for them is Jared Ivey. Now, why did I pick Jared Ivey over Tyreek Smith, who is a former draft pick that's been with the team last year? They brought back last year. Connor O'Toole, who's an undrafted free agent, who's like an interesting edge rusher. The reason I picked Jared Ivey is because I think he's the only other guy that fits the DeMarcus Lawrence role. They have been having him play the DeMarcus Lawrence. DeMarcus Lawrence, even though he's listed as an edge, he spent a fair amount of time with a hand on the ground in the defensive line, setting the edge, playing like a bigger, stronger type of position. Jared Ivey's a guy that they've been using in that way. I don't know that anybody else on this roster has that potential. So I think Jared Ivey becomes their backup to DeMarcus Lawrence, who, by the way, has also had some injury issues. And I think is a guy they feel like could play that position. I think Jared Ivey also potentially gives Mike Morris some challenge. I think there's some similarity in what they can play and what they bring. I think Ivey's a little bit stronger. I think Mike Morris is a little bit more versatile. So that one's going to be interesting to watch. Tyreek Smith, I just haven't seen enough from him to say that I think he's going to make the team. He was on the practice squad. Maybe he'll continue to be. Connor O'Toole did show some. So I'm going to actually go ahead and change the color coding here for Connor O'Toole. I think he deserves to be at least listed as on the bubble to start camp. Okay. So we'll go back. Let's dismiss. We'll go back and where were we? Here we are. Here is the edge player. I'm going to make Connor O'Toole on the bubble as well. So again, the 5 I've got them keeping Derek Hall, DeMarcus Lawrence, Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, and Jared Ivey. All right. So that gets us to cornerback. All right. I've got them keeping 5 corners. Last year, they kept 5 corners. All right. So again, I'm going chalk so far on the defensive side. And before I start going through the corners, I see Italian Knight is back to his old tricks. He's given away 50 Hawk Blogger memberships. That is 50 free memberships to this channel. Incredibly generous of Italian Knight. Super appreciative of his continued generosity and all the people that give away memberships. All you got to do to get one of these free memberships is make sure you have gifting turned on for your account on YouTube. Make sure you search Google if you don't know how to do that. And then like the show, subscribe, watch it, leave comments. All those things help YouTube decide who gets these free memberships. So thank you to Italian Knight for doing that. If you get one of these free memberships, consider giving one to somebody else, pay it forward. Also consider upgrading to a club level or higher membership. That gets you access to the Discord channel where there's a lot of fun people talking all the time. A lot of other good stuff going on. Also gets you, access to, gets you access to player interviews as soon as I post them, where everyone else has to wait. So if you want, we're about to get into training camp. We're about to have a bunch of these interviews start to post. Club level or higher, now's the time to upgrade if you have not already done so. All right. So let's talk about corner. Corner, as I said, I have them keeping 5 players. Devin Witherspoon, Reek Woolen, Josh Jobe, Shaquille Griffin, newly signed, re-signed, depending on your perspective. Shaquille Griffin. Those are the 4 locks I've got. And then it is wide open. So after those 4 guys, you've got a scrum. Shamar Jean-Charles, the guy they signed as a free agent from New Orleans, is the guy I'm currently choosing to be the 5th guy. Now, I've got a lot of bubble guys here. Demarion Williams has had a nice spring. Mike McDonald knows him from Baltimore. He has had some slot corner experience, and he might be the only other guy on this list that really can play nickel corner behind Devin Witherspoon. And yes, nickel is different than big nickel, where Nicky Emmanwori plays it only in certain situations. So I think Demarion Williams might be the better choice here above Shamar Jean-Charles. I just liked what I saw from Shamar Jean-Charles during spring and think he's got a chance to stick. So I'm picking him as the 5th. But Demarion Williams is right there. It's neck and neck. And then I've got Isis Waxter as the next most likely. I've just really liked what I saw from him during rookie minicamp. It's been a while since I've seen him, so I reserve the right to, once I get eyes on him again, feel differently. And if he's not going to practice, the guy's not going to make it. So I just think he's 6'2". He is a physical specimen. I think he is the athlete that you want at that position. And the amount of attention that coaches were giving him in one-on-one coaching, from like Leslie Frazier spending time with Isis Waxter, makes me think that the team sees what he could be as well. So I know everyone's talked about Zy Alexander, bigger name, bigger school, but I have Isis Waxter ahead of Zy Alexander going into camp. Now we'll see about availability. Both of those guys are on the NFI list, the non-football injury list, but people are on the NFI list and they get taken off within a few days. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're out for any significant period. So we will find out about that. Now, there's a name that you might be wondering why I haven't called yet. Nehemiah Pritchett, who was on the 53 last year, played in games last year, was he a 5th round pick? No, he was a 6th round pick last year, I believe. I think DJ James was their 5th round pick. Maybe it was vice versa. Either way, doesn't matter. Nehemiah Pritchett, I've got only above Tyler Hall. I've got him after Shamar Jean-Charles and Demarion Williams and Isis Waxter and Zy Alexander. Now, I have not been impressed with Nehemiah Pritchett. I didn't think he should have made the team last year. I don't have anything against Nehemiah Pritchett. I hope that he proves me wrong and he's a friggin' stud, like 100%. But this is a guy that when a completion is made, time and again, he's the one in coverage. Happened last year. It's happened so far this year. So I just haven't seen what they see yet in him. And so I don't think he makes this roster. That's currently where I'm at with Nehemiah Pritchett. He also is not a big special teams guy. So it's not like he was making a name for himself there. Got a question from Smokehawk, which is great to see him. Been a member for 9 months, which I love. He says, how many questionable defensive backs are also special teamers? Well, Shamar Jean-Charles, Demarion Williams, definitely special teams guys. I think all those guys would have to do some special teams. But I think Shamar Jean-Charles and Demarion Williams are probably the best special teams guys on that list. I have not seen enough of Isis Waxter or Zy Alexander in that regard. All right. Good question from Smokehawk, one of our admins as well. So appreciate Smokehawk helping out there. Moderators, I should say, I think is what he is. So thanks for that, Smoke. All right. Next, safeties. I have got them keeping 4 safeties. Well, what did they keep last year? Well, they kept 4 safeties. So I had a lot of differences on offense from last year. I had 0 differences on defense in terms of the numbers that they kept. 6 interior defensive linemen, 4 inside linebackers, 5 edge players, 5 corners, and 4 safeties. Safety is going to be a absolute bloodbath. Like the competition there is going to be fierce. Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, Nick Emmanwori, locks. Love and Bryant are the starters. Nick Emmanwori is going to get a ton of reps as a nickel and dime player. 2nd round pick, locks. That leaves one spot for another guy. They signed DeAnthony Bell from Cleveland. I have him right now as that 4th guy. DeAnthony Bell is a hammer of a strong safety. He is also an excellent special teams player. Now, it's a tough one for me because I am very partial to Jarek Reed. I like him as a guy. I like him as a player. I think he's got a lot of skills. He can play nickel. I think he can play deep. He's got a lot to offer. He's a fantastic special teams player. He was leading the NFL in special teams tackles before he was hurt as a rookie. So it's hard for me to have Jarek Reed after DeAnthony Bell. The physicality that DeAnthony Bell brings, and he made some plays during spring, has me with him a little bit above Jarek Reed. But I'm telling you, this is a serious battle in camp. Now, you can hear I'm excited about it. I know Mike McDonald gets excited about these depth battles. You might not be excited about a battle for the 4th safety spot. I'm excited. That's why I do this. That's just kind of how I am. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. And we're not done yet because Ty Okada played a number of games last year. He came up from the practice squad. He started games for them at times, played significant snaps. They like him quite a bit. He's been a good player. He's also an excellent special teams player. Even AJ Finley, I don't have on the bubble, but came from the Chargers. I think they like him. I think he's been a good special teams player. Like, it is deep, and it's going to be a really tight race. Now, maybe they steal from the interior defensive line, go down to 5 and have 5 safeties. I don't think they will unless Mr. Harbaugh, the special teams coach, decides that he wants one of these safeties as a special teams keep because of what they provide over one other player. Maybe they steal from edge. Maybe they only keep 4 edges and Jared Ivey doesn't make the squad. I don't think they'll steal from corner. I don't think they'll go lower than 5 corners. But right now I've got them with 4 safeties, and man, it's going to be really, really savage watching those guys battle for that final safety spot. All right. So let's go through the defense one more time. Interior defensive line, I've got Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed, Jonathan Hankins, Mike Morris, and Brandon Peely. Inside linebackers, I have got Ernest Jones, Tyrese Knight, Drake Thomas, and Josh Ross. Edge players, Derek Hall, DeMarcus Lawrence, Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, and Jared Ivey. Corners, Devin Witherspoon, Reek Woolen, Josh Jobe, Shaquille Griffin, and Shamar Jean Charles. Told you yesterday, they got the hyphenates all over this team. And then safety, Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, Nick Emmanwori, and DeAnthony Bell. So that's where I'm at with projections ahead of time. And then, of course, for special teams, the 3 guys, Michael Dixon, Jason Myers, Chris Stoll, the 3 specialists that I expect to be locks. Now, if you look at this, I'm going to zoom out for a second so you guys can see the whole thing. All right. And I'll zoom back in so you get a little bit closer view. All right. So actually, let me do this so I can see everything that I'm doing. So if I look at all the players that are locks, who do I have? How many locks do I have? So 22, 27, 28, 30, 33. I've got 33 out of 53 spots that are locks. I've got 5, 6, 7, 8 that are high confidence. So that gets you up to like 41. That leaves like 12 spots that are really up for grabs if I'm close to correct. Not a lot. Not a lot. And again, I have got 26 on offense and 24 on defense, and then the 3 specialists. Now, the other thing that always happens this time of year is you will get, you don't want to see it, but you will get some injuries. And so guys will come off. Some guys will just not practice enough. They'll bring other guys on. They'll also, Connor Williams was not on the roster to start. Now, that was pretty rare what happened there. I don't expect something like that necessarily, but they may bring on a vet later. They might make a Noah Fant trade that comes with something else. Like, don't know. Maybe they make a Trey Hendrickson trade that's like blows everything up. Who knows? But with what we know right now, that's kind of what I have projected for this team. I'm curious for you guys, obviously in comments, in chat, curious where you guys see things different than what I've got, where you feel really strong. I saw somebody say, there's no way that Kenny McIntosh beats out Damian Martinez. I think Damian Martinez is awesome. He's also a 7th round pick. And Kenny McIntosh has been really good when he got on the field and is a great outside zone runner. Like, he's a hand and glove fit for this scheme. I think that's going to be a knockdown, drag out fight as well. I would not count out Damian Martinez, but to say there's no way that Kenny McIntosh will beat him out, I think is someone who's a little got an agenda in favor of Damian Martinez. And I respect it, man. You got to have players you feel that strongly about. So I got nothing but love for that point of view, but I do think there's going to be a bigger battle there. When I look at this overall roster, and now I've done this exercise where I see the biggest, like, real question marks of how things can get shaken up. We talked about safety today. I think that wide receiver would be maybe my second biggest question, because that's where Torrey Horton can make a big difference. If he's going to be a returner, then Steven Sims becomes expendable. If Cody White jumps some guys, like there's a bunch of things that could happen at the receiver position that I've got questions about. From there, offensive line, the back end of that room, I don't think Josh Jones is a lock, that even though they signed him. So I've got him as high confidence, but not a lock. I think Bryce Cabeldue, Mike Jarrell, Satara Lamea all belong on the roster. I'm not sure all of them will be on the roster. And then running back, we talked about. Quarterback, we've talked about. Backup linebacker. These are things that, like, when I asked Mike McDonald, what competitions does he look forward to the most? He kind of listed a bunch of these things that I'm kind of going over right now. Who's going to be their gunner, like on punt coverage? That's like a lot of people when they go to these training camp practices, they're like watching the quarterbacks throw the receivers and all this stuff. If you want to know who's going to make the roster, look at who's the top of the depth chart on special teams. Who is winning on the gunner reps, those kind of things. Those are what actually make the difference about whether someone makes the team at the end of the day. So I can't wait. Going to be fun next week to be able to be there in person, start seeing this all unfold in real time. If you haven't liked and subscribed, you're going to want to do that. You're going to want to click the bell to get notified when I go live, because I will be doing player interviews pretty much every day. I will be doing shows from the facility, practice reports, either at the facility or when I get home. There's going to be a lot of stuff. So now is the time to subscribe and make sure you let other people know. And I will announce this right now. So I told you that tomorrow morning is going to be EJ Snyder from Bootleg Football. Going to be a lot of fun talking to him. Friday morning at 9 a.m. it's looking like I'll be talking to Abe Lucas. Looking forward to talking to Abe, catching up with him. So that will be the Friday morning show. Keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk to Big Abe and catch up on all the things that he's doing to get ready for just an absolute huge season. All right. Sorry, I was checking something in chat to make sure I hadn't missed some news. But otherwise, if you have not already gone to patreon.com, please do. I would appreciate it. Okay. New news. Bob Condotta. Bob Condotta. I'm going to get that right eventually. I've talked to Bob for years and I still can't get his last name right. He says that NFL transactions show that 4 of the 6 players the Seahawks placed on the NFI list Tuesday have since reported as passing their physical. That is Tyrone Broden, Montori Foster, Derek Jackson, and Isis Waxter. That's good news. That is good news. That means Isis Waxter hopefully will be there day 1 of training camp and we'll be able to see him compete. Riley Mills, we knew was not going to be ready. Zay Alexander is the guy that did not pass physical yet. Doesn't mean he's not going to. It could be a couple of days. But we will see. So that's good news. That's exciting. And can't wait for that. All right, everybody. Appreciate. Oh, sorry. One more comment I'm going to respond to here. Raptor Rancher says, Brian, I started the Dungeon Crawler Carl book series today. Sorry, not about football. Man, that's okay. I love this series. I am on the final book, or at least the final published book. I haven't been able to get myself over the finish line with that one, but I love the first part of the series, and the author is from Gig Harbor, and there's Seahawks references and Pearl Jam references and a bunch of Seattle stuff. So if you want a fun book series that's kind of like reading a video game and will make you laugh, that's a fun one. Dungeon Crawler Carl It's good. It's a good one. I'd recommend it. All right, everybody. Until tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. with EJ Snyder. I will see you then. Until then, I'm Brian Emhauser. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.